It's very important to do this when you're young. If you're gonna ditch the foo and climb to healthier to a healthier climate, then do it while you're young. Don't wait, for a number of reasons. And I'll just sort of talk briefly about my mother again and then talk about the principles. One of the things that, of course, has crossed my mind, as it does for everyone who goes through this process from time to time, is, well, what am I going to do when my mother gets, sick, yea, unto death? When she's on her deathbed, when she's obviously not getting back up, and she's calling for me. My son, my golden boy, come to me. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? Am I going to say, well, I'm going to go see her, and I'm going to give her some comfort at the end of her life? Or am I not going to see her? And actually, it would not be at all past my brother, I think, for my mother to die and him simply not to tell me. I think that would be part of his sadism, because he would feel that would be a bad thing. And of course, this is where you hear a lot of this propaganda, that if you don't see your parents, you will regret it as you get older. It may seem like a good thing now, but you will feel sad and unhappy and guilty, and you will realize that you missed out on a great treasure and that you should have reconciled and blah, 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 blah. Well, it's not true. It's not true. I have a friend of mine whose father left him when he was very young. He tried a couple of times to get in touch with him. They had a few awkward lunches, and then this guy's father got old and died and never contacted him again. I mean, there's no fantasy out there. There's no extruded reality. There's no oppositional fantasy camp of platonic ideals where you can go and meet good parents. You just can't. I mean, they are who they are. There's no interaction other than what they do. There's no personality other than what people say and how they act. And there's no fantasy wherein there's some other good person. This is a Christian hangover, right? This idea that you can have a great relationship with bad people. It's a Christian hangover because the Christians believe that the soul is good, and therefore there is good even in the worst of us, and you can't corrupt and destroy what God has made, and therefore there's good in the worst of us. And it's just not true, of course. It's absolutely not true. When you go bad, you go bad. When an apple gets rotten, there's not a magic apple somewhere inside there that's not rotten. It's rotten. And when your leg is gangrenous, there's no healthy leg somewhere in there that you can just believe in hard enough and magically produce into existence. No. You're rotten. You're rotten through and through, and you have become a cancer on society. And I hate to sound harsh, but these are people who abuse children, so don't look to me for sympathy. Don't look to me for gentleness. Don't look to me for kindness or forgiveness. There is no forgiveness when it comes to the abuse of children. There is no forgiveness when it comes to the abuse of citizens through violence. There is no forgiveness for the abuse of children, either through religious instruction or propaganda or physical or emotional or verbal abuse. There is no excuse. There is no forgiveness for it, because it can't ever be undone. If I borrow your car and crash it, I can buy you a new car and give you a couple of $100 or a couple of $1,000 for your inconvenience. There is no recompensing for an undermined or a harmed childhood. There's no way that you can go back and restore that, and therefore there is no forgiveness. There can be forgiveness where there can be restitution. Where there is no restitution, there is no forgiveness. You don't forgive people for rape or murder or theft, which they will not recompense you for, or abuse or fraud or anything where they don't strive mightily to put things right. You simply don't forgive people for it. And you can say that you do. Of course, you can imagine that you do, but you don't, in fact, because it hasn't been undone. And so there is no forgiveness in these areas. So I wondered about whether I would see my mother, and of course I have decided, as I'm sure you can imagine, that I won't. Because what would it mean? It's going to be traumatic for me. It's going to be really unpleasant for me. And why would I want to put myself through that? In what way has she earned any comfort? And wouldn't it be... It is then, of course, saying to myself, not to anybody else, because really it's my own heart that matters here. It would be saying to myself that it was wrong to not see her. And I just can't see my way clear to figuring out how that could be the case. I mean, I'll tell you, I hope that she lives for another 20 years. I really do. I hope that she lives a long, 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 long life. Because I've thought over the years, wouldn't it be sort of sad and ironic if I went through all this struggle and I said, I think my mother is 69 now. I went through all this long struggle, and I ended up breaking with my mother, and wouldn't it sort of be sad if she keeled over and died the next day? Then what did I had won one day of freedom. I'd won one day of integrity. I hope she lives for a long time, because that way, that's more time that I didn't have to see her. It makes the decision to break with her all the more valuable. If she lives, I guess it's been 7 or 8 years now, and if she lives for another 20 years or 10 years, then that's been 20 or 30 years of freedom, and that was worth going through that hellish decision for. It would be a little less worth it if it was a couple of days, I guess is what I'm saying. That's why you should do it while you're young, because you get the longest term benefit of it. And the other thing that I would say, why do it when you're young, is because your parents will let you go. They will not probably let you go when they get older, because they need you. Of course, as we get older, we become frail, we become sickly, we become demanding. We need resources from people, and it's, I think, somewhat important to some degree, and not in any morbid sense, but to live your life with one eye on the deathbed, working backwards, right? So what do I need when I'm dying? Who do I need to be there? And how am I going to get that? I mean, that's important, because you don't want to just sort of live your life in this shallow, frivolous, or alienated, or lonely way, and then as you get older, realize that, oh man, nobody likes me, nobody wants to spend any time with me, and I'm going to grow old and die alone. That's a pretty sad exit strategy. That's not a good end game, in my book. So what's going to happen as your parents age, if you haven't broken with them, is they're going to start to play the pity game. They're going to start to throw an endless pity party. And what that means is they are going to withdraw all of their aggression, and they're going to start manipulating you through sadness, through mild depression, through sighs, through aches and pains, through rambling reminiscences about what could have been. And they're going to start to need or want or beg for pity from you. And that is going to be very hard to resist, because you're going to feel, well, they did the best they could, now they're pretty vulnerable, they're not so bad, blah, 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 but it's all an act. I mean, it's all an act. Once, you have to make the moral decisions before the circumstances force a change in behavior. If you kill someone and you brag about it, and then when you're caught, you fight and you flee, and then when you are interrogated, you lie and say, I never did it, I was somewhere else, and and everything breaks down, and then when you are presented with incontrovertible proof, there is a videotape of you killing someone, and then you burst into tears and you say, well, it's the worst thing ever, I feel so guilty, I feel so bad. Well, obviously it's just a ploy. Obviously it's just a manipulation. Obviously it's got nothing to do with any inner kind of moral compass. And obviously if you could get a chance to escape, you would do it in a split second. So you can cry and say, oh, I did this terrible thing, and I feel so bad, and I throw myself on the mercy of the court, and if I could undo it, I would, and I'm the worst person ever. Well, if you evince that kind of guilt and so on, only when you're cornered, then obviously it's just a maneuver, it's just a ploy. So you want to do this when your parents are young and healthy. They'll probably let you go, figuring, he'll come back, or we'll find alternatives, or whatever, right? Let him go. He's just become some libertarian nut job. What do we need him for anyway? This, of course, is a lot easier if you have siblings. I mean, if you're a single child, it's going to be tougher. And, of course, the other thing, too, you don't want to be the last one out of the building, right? I mean, if you've got siblings who are staying close with your parents, you don't want to be the last one, right? If they decide to go and you're the last one, then you're going to get all of the intense pressure and parental stalking that you could imagine to try and stay in the nest. Fortunately, my brother has decided to stay with my mother because he's just so much of a better person than me. So you definitely want to get out while you can, get out quick, get out early. And when your parents start to play the pity game, of course, it's absolutely up to you what you do with it. You can still choose to see them and support them and nurse them and give them money and put them in homes and go and wipe their chins when they get old and give them adult diapers and all that. You can choose to do all of that stuff. But for God's sake, don't imagine that you're doing it for any moral reason. You're doing it because you're being manipulated into giving resources to bad people. And if you still want to do that after you've fully recognized that, that's fine. But if you don't then if you don't imagine that it's any kind of moral transaction. You're being manipulated into giving resources to bad people at the expense of your own life, right? This is going to harm you. All of your primary relationships that are valuable will be completely and utterly undermined and destroyed, and if not destroyed, it's certainly undermined and weakened, and made all the less satisfying by your continual contact with your parents and your continual giving of value to people who have either harmed you or just not benefited you that much. And you owe them nothing. You owe them absolutely nothing. There is no contract in biology. There is no, I wrote in a poem many years ago, construct is not contract. If you build another human being, it's not a contract. You owe them absolutely nothing. You owe them what you owe everybody, which is justice. And justice means to be good to the good and to withdraw sanction from evil, to withdraw resources from evil, or to withdraw resources from people you just don't particularly care for. So don't imagine that it's any kind of moral transaction if you want to go and spend time with your parents because you feel guilty. It's a specifically immoral transaction because you're saying that emotional bullying is a higher value than virtue, which undermines virtue in your life, in your marriage, in your relationships. It's going to really harm what you do with your kids. Trust me on this one. And it's not a moral transaction. It is a net loss to everyone except for the base material needs of your parents. So you want to make sure that if you're going to do this thing, and I certainly recommend that you do it unless you have a great relationship with your parents, if you're going to do this thing, do it when you're young. If you wait until the pity game starts, until they're old and need resources and can't bully you anymore, then it's going to be harder. Still do it, but it's going to be harder. Recognize that it is going to be harder, and that you're going to be more criticized for it, but who cares? I mean, we don't care about society as a whole because it's pretty corrupt, so why would we care about the criticism of people who get upset with us for not giving resources to parents which we do not love? So, thanks so much for listening. I hope you're doing well.